Is it on? Yeah, we did. It's recording. Erev Tov, everyone. Oh, there it goes. This week's Parsha, the Torah tells us that the shoftim and shotrim that are appointed, the shoftu as olam mishpat tzedek, they should judge the people, render judgment that is, quote, mishpat tzedek, unquote. What is mishpat tzedek? The mishpat is judgment. Do it according to the Shulchan Aruch, according to Choshen Mishpat. So this is the first inclination that we have, which exists throughout Tanakh, that there's a higher form of judgment than just the letter of the law. In the Gemara, it's called Lifnim Mishur Asadin. It's the inner soul of judgment itself. So in Halacha, there's a discussion amongst the Meforshim. What is Lifnim Mishur Asadin, and who does it apply to? So first, let's do the classic case in the Gemara. Classic case in the Gemara is in Bava Metzia. Great Amora hired workmen to move barrels in his warehouse from one place to another. The barrels were full of wine, and the workers were negligent. And a number of the barrels broke. The wine was destroyed, and the barrels were broken. So as a guarantee that he would be paid for the damages, he confiscated the clothing of the workers. In other words, their street clothes, they changed into work clothes, and the street clothes were available, and he confiscated them, become a mus on them, in order that he should get paid for his damages. So the Gemara says the workers objected. They took him to the Rav, and they said to him, he took our clothes, we can't go home. Tell him to give us our clothes back. And he said, they broke my barrels. They spilled my wine. I've sustained damages from them. I want to be sure I'll be able to get paid. So the Rav said, give them back their clothes. So he said, Dino Hache, is that the din? The din is that they're not a mamazik. They damaged me. I'm entitled to get paid. So the Rav said, Ain, yes, that's the din. So the workers said, They saw that they had the right rabbi. So the worker said, listen, we worked all day, and we're going to go home with empty to our wives and family. And we won't have the payment for our day's labor. Tell them to pay us. So the Rav thought it over, and he said, yes, pay them. So he said again, Dino, that's the din? And he said, yes, that's the din. So not only did he sustain the damages, but he had to pay them for damaging him. So the Gemara says, he asked for an explanation. How is that the din? So he said, because the posuk orchel tzadikim yishmor. You have to do what's righteous. In the Gemara, we have numerous cases of lifnei mishura sadin. That a person was obligated to do more than what it looks like the letter of the law requires. And the Gemara has a posuk for each. Orchel tzadikim tishmor. Vasisa yosher v'atau b'nei Hashem alakecha. And part of it is our posuk in this week's parsha, v'shoftu esom mishpat tzedek, a righteous mishpat. So oftentimes a righteous mishpat is much more than the letter of the law. So there are numerous ways that the Meforshim looked at this. The Rambam looks at it as a matter of Kiddush Hashem. In other words, that the whole concept of Lifnei Mishur Sadin is an avenue to be Mekadosh Shemayim. And therefore the Rambam says that the din of Lifnei Mishur Sadin, the Rambam makes a difference between a person that he calls a tzaddik and a person that he calls a chassid. A tzaddik is someone that observes the law. A chassid is someone that does more than what the law requires. So he said, that's why it says, Orchos Chasidim Tishmor. The ways of the chassid you should observe. So it depends who. If you're, and that's how he discusses this case. This was a Rav that they did it to. The Rav should have a higher standard than just the bare minimum of the law. He has to do more required. He has to be Mekadosh Shemayim. So therefore, he is high. But somebody else that would do the same thing, somebody that is not in such an exalted state of spirituality, that people don't recognize in him that he should be a role model, so he would not be high in such a case. So the Rambam says, Lifnei Mishur Sadin is very selective. Depends who. Because it's a din in Kiddush Hashem. And what is a Chilul Hashem to one person is not to another. So, if you're dressed like an observant Jew and you misbehave, so then that's a Chilul Hashem. But if you're not dressed that way and you're a plain guy and you do the same thing, so Zemash it's not a question of Chilul Hashem. That's the sheet of the Rambam. The Ramban and other Rishonim, the Ramban in this week's parsha, says it applies to every Jew. It's not a question of Kiddush Hashem, or Chilul Hashem. It's a question in the din itself. The din, the judgment itself, allows for Lifnei Meshuras Adin. Because the Torah searches for the ultimate truth. That's why it says, Tzedek, Tzedek, Tirdov. Why does it say it twice? So there's a Tzedek on the surface. He did what Shulchan Aruch says. But in his heart, he knows that the guy is entitled to more. So the Ramban says it's a matter of empathy. Put yourself in the place of that other person. Put yourself in the place of the workers. They worked all day. And now you're going to take their clothing and they're not going to have any money to come home with. And the house will be sad. Put yourself in that position. And that's the deal. That's tzedek, tzedek, tzedek.
They say that, okay, see an insurance company, you say, okay, we have a big pocket, so take it.
Well, the Rambam doesn't say it. The Rambam doesn't say it on how wealthy the person is. That doesn't apply. Doesn't apply if the city or the insurance company. That doesn't apply. What applies is the person himself. Is he, so to speak, does he hold himself out to be a spiritual person? Then that's a different Allah. Then there's a third way to understand the Lifnei Meshuras Adin, and that is within the din itself, there's a flexibility. Because the din is only here to reveal the value that lies underneath the din. And the value is that you have to respect other people's property, etc., etc. But within that is built in what the Baalei Musar call Kovod Odom. Respect for human beings as a human being, as a person, as God's creature. So if you come at it from the angle of Kovod Odom, so then you have to help the man out. You can't be cruel about it. So that this concept of Lifnei Meshuras Adin, we find it throughout the Talmud, and in all sorts of cases. And really now in Chodesh Elul, and we're coming to Yemei Harachmim V'Slichos, so that's what we ask from the Ribono Shel Olam. We ask him that he should treat us Lifnei Meshuras Adin. Should take into consideration all of the problems that we have and all of the challenges and all of the weaknesses and the fact that we're only human. So then he would come to a different conclusion than Midas Adin requires. So this is an idea that we should all have in mind. When we deal with others, it's very hard because my barrels were broken. I'm the one that suffered the loss. But the ability to put yourself in the other person's situation, so that the Torah also requires from us. And that becomes the basis of how we should deal with the questions of liability of others. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash Omer, what's HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Zakos Israel, Pir B'Lohem, Torah Mitzvot Shenemar. I don't know if the page the man said, go, Yagil Torah B'Yadir.